Alrighty, Brian. We have some board members that need to leave, probably by 5. We're scheduled to start at 9 tomorrow. Jack, are you listening?
No, sorry.
It's okay. I'm sorry to interrupt you, the two of you. If we have some people that need to leave by 5, I'm thinking maybe we would put Brian tomorrow morning at 9. Yeah, board members need to leave.
He was just gonna be 30 minutes.
I was thinking that they might need to leave by 5.
That's okay.
We have an hour scheduled tomorrow, and we need to be there for sure.
I'd rather finish quicker tomorrow.
Okay. Brian, you're up.
Sorry.
You would?
I was checking the other thing.
You got everything?
Oh, Brian's coming in. I'll read you the promo going across the TV right now.
I'm
This is
sorry?
Sweet, by the way, if you didn't know that. That's why more interesting newscaster read. It says, tonight on News 10, CalSTRS ticking time bomb, $22 million deeper in the hole every day, a problem only lawmakers can fix.
Are you TiVoing this for us?
I was checking, I'm gonna go back to checking that.
Okay, go back to checking, we put Brian on. Are you, or have you guys decided to change your mind?
No, Rich will be stoked.
We're gonna save it for Rich tomorrow. Brian, actually, we love our ethics training subjects.
Well, good. Well, this is always a challenge for me to present it because I have such an ethical audience that it's labeled ethics training, which I really feel is sort of a misnomer for what we do. I prefer to call it an ethics conversation. You do take your training with the Attorney General's office every 2 years, the online training, which is very rules laden, and it's my purpose today not to be rules laden. Although we all take ethics very seriously, you'll see that I've tried to lighten it up a little bit. Hopefully I'll hit the right tone. If not, I'm open to hitting the right tone the next time. So just go ahead and you have a presentation, written materials that are in your board packet, but my slide deck is a little bit different. And it is perfect for a short time period and for somebody like me that has a short attention span. So, ethics. There you go. That's you.
There you
That's
go.
a board
Throw the
member
book at us.
trying to, I think that's a BlackBerry, a little dated slide. But yeah, there's a lot of rules here. So I'm going to try to instead do this philosophically. And Jill is our ethics and compliance officer, so she helped me put together this presentation, and if there are any really complex questions about the rules, that's why she's here. So this has always been true since I've worked here, the tone at the top. This board sets the tone at the top. I love this quote, you'll see it in your materials, is it's not intended to be religious, but it's preach the gospel every day, if necessary, use words. And I think one of the ones that we learned very early is actions speak louder than words, and indeed, action is the medium of expression for ethics. So you express your ethical tone at the top by the way that you act on a daily basis, and it is readily apparent to staff and to, I believe, the members, and certainly members of the public. You conduct all of your business in a transparent manner. And I think that speaks very highly for you. And then that permeates the staff. Staff feels that too. And I'm missing a slide, I believe. Okay, well, here we are. Duty, utilitarianism, and virtue. So if you remember back, those of you that were here, we went and we did sort of the Kantian view of, Immanuel Kant's view of duty, John Stuart Mill's, Socrates' view of duty, John Stuart Mill's utilitarianism, and then the virtue of Immanuel Kant. We went through that, and really what we sort of, the struggle is between a principle-based view and a rules-based view in the, as public officers for the state of California, as fiduciaries, you're caught between both. There is the fiduciary, which is very much a principles-based, but there's also rules attached to that, and certainly all the conflict of interest rules, your board policy manual, those are very much rule-based. Just how these things come up. Janet, check with ethics to see whether it's okay to maul our creditors. So we never know when an ethics question is going to come up. We have our Ethics and Compliance Council here to assist you. We're here to provide guidance on these very complex rules. I did want to talk a little bit about our organizational ethics. And as I looked at this, back up a little bit, we spent some time in board governance about whether there would be a board ethics policy. And as I spent time and we were discussing this and we went through and we looked at a lot of other ethics policies, especially for large corporations, we found that the approach a lot of corporations took is that their ethics policy is their statement of core values. And so, even though we went through that process, I want to reiterate that you have organizational ethics, we have organizational ethics, and they're in our statement of core values. We characterize them as ethical aspirations. They define our organizational moral code. So you're talking about customer service, you're talking about transparency, stewardship, and they're an affirmative statement of how we act, how we should act. We should follow our core values in everything that we do, and that's in our rating of our employees, it's in our job duties, job responsibilities. It very much permeates throughout the organization. So then we have organizational codes of conduct, and quite simply, it's how you apply those principles in certain situations. Codes of conduct attempt to delineate some of the more common situations that you might come across. Hey, look, a ball. Can we play? What are the rules? I don't know. What rules do we need? Must be a lawyer on the right. So what is your code of conduct? Well, you have a statement of ethical conduct in your board policy manual. And so that provides your framework for applying your ethical code, which is the core values, in your day-to-day conduct. And then you have a code of conduct, which is, it sounds like overkill, but it really has sort of a different focus, and that's more of how you operate on a interpersonal basis and on a regular basis with each other during conducting board business. And I've laid out some of those, in the written materials, but that's the central basis for ethical conduct is you have your core values and you have your codes of conduct. This one's one of my favorites. There's no right way to do a wrong thing. It's that's true. And I thought this was illustrative of that. How hard would it be to program our website to collect browser history from our visitors? Well, first I'd need to invent some sort of device that reverses my sense of right and wrong. Okay, so are we talking about a week or a month? Which leads me to signs of ethical hazards approaching. And I got this from this great book by Professor Dennis Collins, which is Essentials of Business Ethics, and I've provided the citation to it. It's a terrific book. And
I should just point out, most of the major websites do collect browser history from their visitors.
well, in that case, it may not be an ethical issue. I don't know. I don't know. That sounds to me like that might be an issue for another talk. But some of these are warning signs. It's ethical if it's legal and permissible. Well, you know that sometimes you wrestle with things that are permitted by the law, but are not necessarily ethical. It's necessary. Well, the ends justify the means. It's just part of the job. It's all for a good cause. I'm just doing it for you. I'm just fighting fire with fire. If it doesn't hurt anyone, it's okay. If everybody else is doing it, well, I heard that from my kids when they were growing up. I've never heard that within the context of this organization. But there are some instances where maybe we'll look to a larger pension fund about something that they're doing, but we apply our own analysis to it. It's ethical if I don't gain personally. Well, I think you wrestled with that issue, at least the board governance did, and the board in the insider trading. Does it benefit anyone on a personal level, not just yourself? It's ethical if I've got it coming. Well, I'm sorry, I can read that two ways, but basically I deserve it and therefore it's ethical. So I raise these as just sort of some of the warning signs, not just for board members, but for staff. Those kind of statements should give you pause. When my youngest kid was growing up, he used to watch a show called The Fairly Odd Parents, and involved these fairies, and they were, and anytime they tried to do something like grant yourself unlimited wishes, they'd pull out this book called The Rules, and you have lots of them. I think two of the main legal considerations, and this may be flipped, is you have legal considerations as trustees. You have legal considerations by virtue of being a board member with this board. And then as public officers, you also have legal considerations. State constitution. So just going to slide in that. The state constitution, as far as it talks about you being fiduciaries and trustees. Feel free to jump in anytime, Jake. Lots of state statutes and regulations. You have the education code provisions, there are government code provisions, there are public contract code provisions, there's a political reform act, there's a conflict of interest, there's government code 1090. It is just a huge legal and regulatory scheme that surrounds every action that you take. Again, we're here to provide that detail, but I wasn't planning on providing it at 10 minutes to 5 on Thursday afternoon. But we can. Your board policy manual, which we're looking at, but contains a lot of information about how a board member should behave or what board member is required or should not do. And this really should have been the first one. My apologies. Fiduciary responsibility, that really is your first guide to your actions. And then there's common law, and that comes up in both in the fiduciary responsibility, under the restatement of trusts, but also in conflict of interest rules and regulations. Okay, so here are your rules. That'll be 5,000 gold pieces then. And if you have any questions, it's going to cost you extra. Again, which one is the lawyer in this? So ethical decision-making. Well, you have your fiduciary responsibilities, you have your codes, code of conduct, you have your rules, and then you have an application of a framework. And I've been providing you with this same framework for the last, I think the last two presentations that comes from the Marcula Center for Applied Ethics. I think it's a really good framework for something coming up. I think also, speaking with us if you have a question, if there's an ethical issue, and anyone in the organization, the Ethics and Compliance Office is available to them. We have an ethics hotline. We're very interested in discussing these issues. They're near and dear to my heart, especially since I take my marching orders and my attitude from this board, and the commitment to ethics is very, very strong, and we continue to operate that way. And certainly I also want to say from management and executive staff, the ethics and transparency are very, very important and are consistently applied. So I have one more slide. Actually, I have two more. I love this quote. Relatively applies to physics, not ethics. So there is, the ethical rules, the moral underpinnings are absolute. The codes can change depending upon the situation. That's sort of my quick slide presentation. I have, I do, you have a whole list of rules. We do Bagley-Keene training. We do, you get fiduciary training. It is, it would be difficult to present all those rules unless we're going to do a longer session, maybe a 2-hour session, and I'm not suggesting that you want to do that. That's why we have a resource, and we can provide that information. So before I move to the very last slide, are there any questions for either Jill or I?
I don't have anybody in the queue.
Okay, well, speaking of Albert Einstein, I just love this picture.
Oh, see, now Rich is going to be terribly depressed that he missed that one.
Anyway, that's all I have. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Jill. All right. We can probably whisk through the rest of the agenda. Okay.
Look at Terry, he's turned.
He's
like.
resigned himself to it.
Exactly.
All righty.
Okay.
Committee reports, we do have action items. Pleasure of the board, do we want to go through these one by one? Or do them, we probably should do them one by one.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so audits and risk management. Paul, if you want to click in, you have a motion for the board. There you go.
I do.
There you go.
Do I have it here?
Yes, you do.
Just read that.
Yes, you do.
So the Audits and Risk Management Committee met on Thursday, November 6, 2013, and received the independent auditor's report on CalSTRS financial statements as of June 30th, 2013, and the report to the Audits and Risk Management Committee by independent auditors. The committee also discussed the new accounting standards required by the implementation of GASB Statements 67 and 68, and received the audit director's update, including staffing changes and recruitment efforts by audit services. By direction of the committee, I move approval of the committee's recommendation to accept the independent auditor's report on CalSTRS financial statements as of June 30th, 2013, and the independent auditor's report to the Audits and Risk Management Committee.
Are there any questions as to the motion coming out of committee? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. We have approved our financial statements. Yay! And the independent auditor's report too. All righty. Sharon?
All right. Can you keep me in there?
Oh, yep, there you go.
By direction of the Benefits and Services Committee, I move adoption of the recommendation to credit the specific interest rate rounded up to the next highest basis point for the defined benefit supplement, and cash balance programs effective July 1st, 2014.
No, Sharon's going to move 2 items. Do we want
Oh.
to take those separately or do those
Should we do it
as
separate?
a whole?
Yeah.
As a whole is fine? Alrighty, unless somebody wants to divide them, you can always ask that.
By direction of the committee, I also move adoption of the recommended resolution to provide the following contribution rates, you can see them below, for additional service credit by age ranges effective January 1st, 2014, for the 2% at 60 benefit structure and the new 2% at 62 benefit structure as stated on pages Benefit and Services 16 through 17, with additional analysis to be presented at the April 2014 meeting on the effect of the implemented interest rates and to the extent that members purchase service credit in November and December 2013. And the cost of those purchases, I think that should be a period.
I think those are the,
I think
on
that
the
should be a-
16 and 17.
All right.
Alrighty, any questions on those 2 motions coming out of Benefits and Services? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Any abstentions? Alrighty. Terry?
The Board Governance Committee met on Thursday, November 7th, 2013, and considered the 4th reading of the proposed gift policy. The committee also reviewed the proposed revisions to the board policy manual. By direction of the committee, I move adoption of the proposed gift policy, first option, applying the FPPC gift limit to all staff and a nexus component.
Alrighty, is there any conversation? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay.
Nay.
Any abstentions? The motion passes. Compensation Committee met. By direction of the committee, I move adoption of the proposed ranges to Section 700C of the Board Policy Manual to update the salary range for the position of System Actuary. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Any abstentions? That motion has also passed. We do have the Ledge Committee, the Ledge Committee doesn't actually have to move this to the full board to sponsor legislation, correct? Don't we have that power already?
Yeah, we didn't vote on it. It's a regulation anyway, it wasn't really
It's not legislation.
it's not legislation.
Okay,
yeah.
so that goes into the record as printed, as does the appeals. Board member education. There was a new, no, where I'm gonna do,
Oh, okay.
I'm doing B, C, and D all at the same time. Board member education, there's a new sheet at your seat. That was close. Hot off the presses, and we have the contracts requiring board approval. Does anyone want to pull any of those for further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of B, C, and D, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. We've approved those. Oh, any abstentions? We've approved those.
I'm so sorry. I'm still in there. There need to be a motion.
There does need to be a motion?
Yeah.
Somebody tried to, and I just went right over the top of them. Grant has moved, and Sharon has seconded approval of B, C, and D. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any
Thank you.
abstentions? Thank you, Brian. I was trying to play the speed up rules, you know.
Who's keeping us ethical?
That's right. I'm so used to, if it's coming from committee, it was already moved. We have the appeals committee for information in front of us. The only thing I have, referred to us for, there's nothing coming from committee. The only thing I have for us for review information requests is when we were talking about the pension solution budget, was asking for a further breakdown of the components of that, and Robin, you'll get us that. We also had asked for a breakdown of members with lifetime health benefits outside of LAUSD. Ed's already emailed us that information.
I saw it.
Thank you, Ed. So that's no longer a further request. And Jennifer and Brian, do you have anything else?
I just would appreciate if you would share the information that you emailed in open session, since you
Oh.
requested the information in open
So,
session.
Ed, you want to tell us what that was, or do you need me to go back to my email? I think it's 68%.
78. If we exclude LA Unified from the sample, then 78% of the employees would not be covered by their employer after age 65.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, I was thinking it was probably pretty close to 80,
That's a
so.
good question. That's very good. Glad you-
Jennifer?
I also have the percentage of employees who are covered under the 403B program.
Oh.
And there
What's
was
that
also a discussion for a line and year breakdown of external costs for the pension solution.
I got that one
Yeah. We said-
already.
Okay.
Thank you for covering me on that. Draft agenda for the
You know,
next
there
meeting?
are two changes. One, Dana suggested that you all might want to hear, it's been quite some time since we've had an update on the California teacher study. Some of you have no idea what I'm even talking about, but this is the largest study, I believe, in the United States of women and the drivers of breast cancer in women, and they've used California teachers as the longitudinal sample, and CalSTRS has worked closely with USC and the research team to help facilitate that study, and it's already generated professional scientific publications from the study around some of the interesting drivers of breast cancer. So we actually participate on a advisory committee to that. Board members have done that over the years. Various board members have done that. So we could invite the USC researchers to come in and make sure you all know what that's about. We'll see if February works for everybody. The second one, I've got to quickly ask you a question, because I've got a note of to-dos from Nancy Williams from the offsite. One of the things that apparently one or all of you identified was the idea of getting not just the annual report on customer service measurement that we do at the offsite, but in her notes was whether you wanted to see a more frequent reporting, maybe mid-year on that. You are getting quarterly reports on customer service in your quarterly report file, so you are getting, but you don't talk about it. Based on the discussion you just had a few minutes ago, I'm not sure you all still feel you want that level of operational reporting or not mid-year, but I would put it on the February agenda if you want to item and discuss it. Otherwise, you would rely on your quarterly reports and the annual report for customer service reporting. So I ask you, would you like to see that, or have you got enough? What?
I can't even remember asking for that.
Either.
So,
I got a long
pleasure,
li- I got a long
pleasure,
list. Let me
pleasure
tell you.
of the board. Pleasure of the board?
Do you like it like it is, or forget about it?
Yeah, my sense is that came out of the discussion about systems and our level of surprise, and I think
Maybe we're.
I think we'd like to be reported to if there's a degradation of service.
All right. And Peggy does do that always in your
Yeah.
report, so. But you, okay.
I'm trying.
Okay.
Sharon, see, I needed
So
the
we have a
break at
quarterly
22.
We have a section on the TRB of quarterly reports.
For all the investment reports and the
I
customer
know the
service report
investment, so customer service is in there too.
and contracts and stuff, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'll take
I'll show you.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
We will
Sounds
go
like
through
there's not an outcry here for another report. I can hear it. Okay, so we'll pass on that. That's all. So and that's it. So you've got the December and February agendas right there.
All righty.
Dana, does the December agenda need to be modified given the appeals?
Oh, yeah, so we'll have to add
The notice will be,
yeah.
well, I think we're only
Dece-
meeting in closed session though.
Okay.
for
Oh, so you'll have to
appeals.
public
So, but we
notice
need
it,
to
but
put that out.
I'll take care of it. Yeah.
Alrighty.
Good.
Alrighty, and are there any statements from the public? Come on up, Sandy. You need Jim. Her husband's a mic man. We have technical help coming. Excuse me.
I'm an audiologist, which is embarrassing. No, that's vocal, not audio. Can you hear me? No.
She wanted to
Okay.
project her voice.
I just want to say thank you for Michael Lynch, who attended the UTLA pre-retirement conference. We had 230 people, we had 4 empty seats.
Wow.
And he did an amazing job, and he always presents in such a positive manner. And we do questions by cards so that he gets to a lot of the questions. We don't let people interrupt him. There's always somebody, but we try to keep it under control. And I just want to thank you again for having somebody at CalSTRS who's so amazing and always accommodates us. So thank you.
You're welcome. Alrighty, we will recess till, Harry, we want to go right off the bat. If we go at 9 tomorrow morning, you guys ready to go right afterwards?
Yeah, so we would start investments at 9:15, 9:20, right around that area.
Okay.
Closed session. Sorry, is that what you're asking? Yeah.
Yes.
Because
We will come into open
we've got some
session.
we've got some public input at 9 o'clock tomorrow.
Right. Alrighty, sounds good. We're recessed till 9. Alrighty, we'll go ahead and, you guys were so quiet earlier. Now that everybody's here, you're just, yeah. Alrighty. Good morning, Jennifer. Brian, do we need to call roll again this morning? We're good? Alrighty. The board will reconvene. We have a couple of items that we'd like to do this morning, informational, and then we'll move into investments. Between the two, we'll take a 5-minute break so we can get our systems reset. And so, Jack, with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to you.
Okay, well, actually, we're going to start just by, in case some of people missed the news last night. News 10, John Myers had worked on a piece around CalSTRS funding. And needless to say, it has gotten increased attention since we submitted our report to the legislature in February from a variety of editorial boards, again saying it's time to move forward on CalSTRS funding. To the state auditor's report, they really listed CalSTRS as one of the highest risks financially to the state. So not surprisingly, we would see television also trying to work and develop a story around this. So this story we're going to show, the story from last night we'll show you in a minute, has legislative interviews, myself and a teacher being interviewed, so different perspectives. And then we thought we'd just talk a few minutes afterwards to clarify a few points. Like always, television is highly edited, so it would be good just to make sure everyone knows the facts around a couple points made in the story as well, just so no one has the wrong impressions. So if you guys are ready to, I think we have a commercial first, oh, we don't have a commercial, oh, football.
Chrysler Jeep Ram SRT USA Today Friday night football.
Lasher
every
Auto,
Friday night
Elk
on
Grove
News
Auto.
10 for the most games and the most comprehensive high school football coverage in the area. Every Friday night.
Yeah.
News 10.
It is
Okay.
a ticking time bomb that few people seem to be talking about, except in state government circles.
And those who are talking about the looming problem with California's teacher pension fund wonder why politicians aren't talking about it. News 10 political editor John Myers takes an in-depth look at the problem growing worse by the second.
I like to see that person who will stand up against the crowd.
Libby Coleman wants her students at McClatchy High in Sacramento to tell it like they see it.
And so as you can see, it's very clear, kind of crystal clear.
But not so clear to this savvy teacher until just recently, the looming disaster for the retirement fund that she and tens of thousands of California teachers count on. And she's not alone.
Yeah, just pour it in. I emailed some other teachers and said, do you know anything about this? And frankly, most of them didn't. So that certainly is a place to start. We need to be better educated about what's going on.
And so here is the simple truth. The California State Teachers Retirement System, or CalSTRS, is on its way to going flat broke in 30 years. The current problem is estimated to be at least $70 billion. In fact, the number you see on the top right-hand corner of your screen, that is how much worse the CalSTRS problem has grown just since this story has been on the air. It's growing at a rate of some $255 every second, almost $22 million a day.
There is not the luxury of waiting another 10 years to figure out this problem.
CalSTRS CEO Jack Enos says it's simple math. The pension fund needs more seed money to invest for teachers. How much more? A whopping $4.5 billion every year for decades, combined from the state, school districts, and teachers. The vast majority of that, taxpayer dollars. For perspective, $4.5 billion is double what the entire Cal State University system will cost state government this year. Paying less, and the hole actually over time gets deeper. Without help, CalSTRS will be insolvent in 2044.
The state would be on the hook for those benefits, and it would be catastrophic.
How did things get so bad? After all, California's Teachers Pension Fund had a surplus back in 1998. Well, that led to overconfident lawmakers increasing a handful of teacher pension benefits, like bonuses for working longer and counting sick leave towards pension payments. Then they slashed the state's annual contribution. That meant a heavier reliance on Wall Street investments, which, as we know, collapsed. A $70 billion shortfall that many admit could have been avoided.
I do think that in retrospect, there are lessons learned.
Darrell Steinberg was a newly elected legislator back then who voted for some of those changes. Now the state Senate leader admits fixing it will be tough, with so many programs cut back during California's deficit years.
It is hard, even if it's necessary, to increase funding for that long-term pension obligation when there is a great demand to make up for a lot of what has been lost.
Still, the teachers' pension time bomb keeps on ticking. This year, not a single bill was introduced at the Capitol to stop it. Governor Jerry Brown has not offered a fix either. And surprisingly, the powerful California Teachers Association, which wants it fixed, on its website still calls the risk of CalSTRS insolvency a myth. It's no myth, says the pension fund's CEO.
we would clearly not fill that $70 billion hole you mentioned without revenue.
Please get out your pre-labs.
And so teachers like Libby Coleman wonder why no one's done anything.
Their job is supposed to be to solve these big problems and grapple with those. That's what we elect them to do, but they're more concerned about the next election.
Is that the end of the clip there? You know, I think we missed that last hook on the clip because that goes back to the commentators who then have kind of this pregnant phrase that says, and it could be far worse than 70 billion, something like that. And really, when you go to the website, what they're of course referring to is the discussions we're all having around GASB obligations. So again, this kind of validates what I've been saying to you. I think right now we really do have a strong responsibility doing education around what that GASB number means. Hopefully you've all had a chance to look at the op-ed we ran in the Santa Rosa paper because they were one of the papers that did print a perspective on GASB, and we're going to continue that work with the various editorial boards before they get off track, understanding what the true meaning of that GASB liability is, since we want this to be obviously a factual presentation. Ed, is there anything on tape you wanted to clarify for the board to maybe around legislation?
Yeah, one of the things, I mean, they made the comment about not a single bill has been introduced, and while it's, you know, hard reading the bill, it's hard to discern what it's about. There is a bill, AB 611, that has passed the Assembly and is in the Senate floor that would serve as a vehicle for legislation if some sort of a plan was agreed upon next year. So I don't think it's fair to say that the legislature has done absolutely nothing about the process. You know, there's also, and maybe Jennifer or somebody else from CTA may want to comment about the website and the statement that was made in the website, because it definitely took the comment out of context. But I'll let CTA speak to that. But you know, I think it created a false impression about the work that's been done around trying to deal with the funding, and that's unfortunate. A lot of things happen that isn't necessarily as visible to the public as it might otherwise be.
You know, Jack, for me, it's, you know, seeing it now again for the second time, one of the things that the teacher says is, you know, we need to educate ourselves. So once again, it's another thing that's out that we have put ample information out and that our members aren't necessarily paying attention to, because we've been trying to educate our members about it all along and it, you know, for like 10 years. So it's disappointing that they've not heard that message. Alrighty, Maggie?
Maggie Ellis, Chair of CTA Retirement Committee. I too was extremely disappointed, but not surprised that an active teacher is unaware of CalSTRS or retirement benefits or the politics around it. I think the retirees in the room and the actives in the room know that our teachers tend to be so focused on teaching, on the things that are right in front of our face, our students, and they don't really pay attention to retirement until they're a few years away. Through State Council, we've actively tried to educate our members. I think the website is one place where we have amped up information about retirement, about DB systems, about the politics, about Social Security. We've done communications through The Educator, our CTA magazine, on a regular basis. We have also, within State Council, which is our governance body, every time we meet, our committee intentionally puts educational pieces in that book that should go back to every local and every president so that they can communicate to their members. So there is ample opportunity for teachers to access information and to learn more about it. But it also just reminds us we have to keep doing what we're doing, because there's always going to be somebody who says, I didn't know. I've already made communications with the local in which this teacher came from, and hopefully they will get in direct contact with me so that I can educate them even further. But I do know that our collaboration with CalSTRS, you provide us with great information to put out at council. Just recently, we did divestment information. And in collaboration with you, we've educated our members about the value of staying in the game. We will continue to educate our members about the unfunded liability and the politics around it. But again, it's going to take time. So thank you for showing that this morning so we can make comment.
Thank you, Maggie. Jim?
Good morning. Jennifer Baker with the California Teachers Association. There were there were many comments that I was able to make to John Myers that unfortunately didn't get included. But one of the facts that I discussed with him was that CalSTRS has been absolutely transparent about this issue, as well as all the constituent groups of CalSTRS, since this issue first came out about a decade ago. But we could not control the fact that the state has had 2 fiscal crises, and that shifted the focus of the legislature. The legislature first began to have a conversation about this, and then during the fiscal crisis, put everything to the side other than trying to deal with the immediate crisis that they were dealing with. Now that the crisis isn't what it was before, because Governor Brown and the legislature have done a great job getting our fiscal house in a better situation than it was with the previous governor. Now they're focusing on what are all these other issues that we put aside, and how do we start to deal with this moving forward. So we're very much looking for forward to the conversation, but there are so many things that were taken out of context, because it's absolutely a myth that CalSTRS is going to go unfunded for 30 years. That's absolutely not true. That assumes that the governor doesn't care. That assumes the legislature doesn't care. It assumes that we all don't care and that we're not going to do anything. That's absolutely not true. We're all committed to doing something, and through all the work that we've seen from CalSTRS, the constituent groups, and the legislature, they have had multiple hearings on this issue. It was SER 105 came out of the conversation they had on pension reform. CTA and many other constituent groups testified to the legislature when they were passing the Pepper Act a few years ago, and we said, this will do nothing to solve the unfunded. And they said, we recognize that, we want to deal with these immediate issues, but let's look at the research and the data coming out of CalSTRS. That's where SER 105 came forward, to where now we have the data that's been used to support legislation. We're looking forward to a very constructive dialogue, but I think it's important that we look at this holistically, because the one thing that they did use was the fact that this has been used as a wedge issue by those that have an agenda to eliminate CalSTRS and to eliminate retirement security for educators rather than ensure they have long-term retirement security. So we look forward to working with you on a continual basis on finding the right approach to fix this.
Thank you, Jennifer. Alrighty, we have a request from CTA to make a statement. So that's our second agenda item of this morning.
Thank you, Chair Dillon. Maggie Ellis, CTA Retirement Committee. Again, I would like to read on behalf of Dean Vogel, our CTA president, a letter to the board. Dear Chair Dillon, I'm writing to express to you CTA's shock about the release of the recent TIA-CREF Institute report titled Equivalent Cost for Equivalent Benefits, Primary DC Plans in the Public Sector, which was released in October. The report, created collaboratively with the Laura and John Arnold Foundation, attacks the credibility of the National Institute of Retirement Security by dismissing their research on the low-cost benefits provided through the defined benefit plan, and argues that a defined contribution plan is a better structure. While we are not surprised by an attack on educators from the Laura and John Arnold Foundation, who have a history of promoting and engaging in anti-educator, anti-defined benefit agenda, we are surprised and disappointed to see TIA-CREF, a trusted CalSTRS vendor, for taking such a political and public stance against defined benefit plans. This report is not based on research. This report is based on false assumptions and clearly seems to be an opinion marketing ploy to promote TIA-CREF products than a thoughtful research report. We are particularly concerned that a vendor who is investing our members' money is using that money to attack the very kind of pension plan our members participate in. We believe this creates a conflict of interest and a breach of fiduciary responsibility that should not be tolerated by CalSTRS. We would think that TIA-CREF's action in this regard would be of significant concern to you and encourage you to create future controls and policies that will provide you with the necessary tools to uphold and protect the existence of your defined benefit plans, as well as to eliminate any conflicts of interest in future relationships you create. We also encourage you to ask potential partners what positions and roles they have taken or played on public policy issues that are of importance to CalSTRS so as to avoid a conflict with your stated goals and values. Educators trust CalSTRS to protect and secure their retirement future. we have been under a constant attack from those who wish to eliminate our retirement security in order to provide Wall Street with unfettered access to public retirement funds. It is imperative that CalSTRS make every effort to ensure they are not working with any entity that may be contributing towards undermining our members' retirement security. We look forward to continue working with you on keeping CalSTRS financially secure and appreciate the important work you do on behalf of our members. Sincerely, Dean Vogel, President. On a separate issue, I want to express our awareness and concern regarding the repeated anti-defined benefit activities taking place at Stanford. There has been an increase in anti-defined benefit activities through instruction, conferences, and most recently, massive online courses also known as MOOCs. Because of the Stanford name, these increased coordinated activities have added to the anti-defined benefit controversy without providing balancing research that has demonstrated the substantial positive economic contributions of defined benefit systems. These one-sided anti-defined benefit activities in a very political climate are concerning. Because CalSTRS has had involvement with Stanford, we want to bring it to your attention as well and ask that you look into these activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Good morning, Lynn.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Lynn Fox, and I'm here representing the United Teachers of Los Angeles, and we wanted to express our concern also about the TIAA report. We are very concerned. However, we do look forward to working with the board, the staff, and our fellow stakeholder groups to protect defined members for STRS members. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Yesterday, maybe Wednesday, the board did receive a copy from a letter that the chairperson or CEO of TIA Craft submitted to us after some contact that we had made with them. So we have their response also. Is there any questions or any further discussion? I'm sorry, Rob.
No urgency.
Go ahead.
So thank you, Ms. President, and thank you, Maggie and Lynn. Speaking on behalf of Treasurer Lockyer, for starters, the Treasurer thinks it's important that CalSTRS not be perceived as trying to stifle public discourse or the free flow and exchange of information, opinions, and ideas. Having said that, at a time when well-respected and well-regarded research institutes and institutes of higher education are lending their talent and their name and consequently their credibility to movements and studies whose motives are highly questionable or highly questioned, both, reasonably, it is in the best interest of our system to work both vigilantly and diligently. It's easy to kind of screw up those two. Saying those two, not working those two. To work vigilantly and diligently with both our investment managers and our other business partners to ensure that we avoid any entanglement in these sort of controversies.
Thank you, Rob. Sure. Anybody else? All right. That then would conclude the board's session for this 3-day stint, our November board meeting. So saying that, we will be adjourned.